Hey there, fourth graders, it's Mrs. Long, and I want to talk to you about expository writing. So you are working on an expository essay in your lessons, and today what I really want to do is show you kind of the process of planning out and starting your expository writing. So when you do expository writing, you are writing about a topic and you're explaining about it. You're giving details and information about it so that it's really meant to inform readers about that topic. It's also called informational writing sometimes. So expository writing and informational writing are really the same thing. You are writing to give information. Okay, so think about any nonfiction text that you have read. It gives lots of details and information about a topic. It doesn't just say, well, this is how it is. It gives you details and information to explain and help you to picture and better understand. And that's what your expository essay should be doing. So you have been given a topic to write about how the westward expansion of the United States, so that's when the settlers in the United States, the American settlers, were moving west, how that affected the Native Americans that were living in the West. And you have two different articles that you can use from your language arts curriculum to help you come up with information about this. This is obviously not something that you should just necessarily know a whole lot of information about. You do have to do some research, okay? So you are going to be using a lot of text evidence. You are more than welcome to also look up information online. You just need to make sure that you cite your source. So that means that at the bottom of your expository essay, you at least include the website or the name and title of the book where you found the information. And so that way you're giving credit to the original source, okay? So I'm going to use a completely different expository topic just because I want to be able to show you how to work through this process, okay? So my expository topic is to explain how adaptations help plants to survive in different environments. And so what I did was I have this book called How Flowers Grow, and I wanted to look at, well, how do flowers grow in different environments? So the first thing that I'm going to do before I do any writing is I'm going to read about it, because I want to be informed about the information so that I can give information. It's kind of like I need the text to teach me so that I can teach you. Okay, so that's basically what informational or expository writing is doing. So I'm going to read about rainforest flowers. It says rainforests are warm, wet places. Trees block out sunlight, so it's dark on the ground. All right, the leaves of the glory lilies hook onto trees so that they can grow up to the sunlight. Okay, that's pretty interesting. It says tank plants trap rainwater in their leaves, and the frogs live in the pools of water. That's pretty interesting. The Rafflesia bud grows on the ground. It grows as big as a cabbage. It has 5 red petals that start to unfold. Rafflesia flowers are as big as wheels on a truck and have no leaves or stems. They smell of rotting meat and attract flies, which spread their pollen. Okay, so there are those stinky flowers. All right, and now let's look about deserts, because deserts are a completely different type of ecosystem. So I want to see, do flowers in the deserts have the same type of things? Flowers grow in hot, dry deserts. Some desert plants don't grow while the soil is dry, but their seeds lie in the ground. After the rain, the seeds grow quickly into flowers. The flowers make seeds, then die. The new seeds grow when rain comes again. Old man cactus plants are covered in woolly hair to shade them from the sun. All right, and when it is dry, the leaves fall off the ocotillo plant. New leaves will grow again after it's rained. Aloe plants store water inside their spiky leaves. All right, so I've gotten a lot of great information. Here's even more I could look at about water plants. So these are plants that actually grow in water, right? They may have roots which grow on the bottom of the lake. Some water plants have roots that float in the water. The water lily flowers float on the surface so that insects can reach the pollen. Because water plants don't grow in most water plants don't grow in rivers because they would be washed away. Water lilies have flat leaves with waxy surface. This helps them float. They don't even sink when a frog sits on them. There's even a picture. Okay, so I've gotten a lot of information. So now what I'm going to start doing is thinking about that information that I've just read. And I read about 3 different types of plants. And so in an expository essay, you're going to want to write 5 paragraphs. You write an introduction, all right? So you have an introduction. And in your introduction, you don't title it introduction, I'm just doing this to help you guys see. In your introduction, you want to have a hook that captures your reader's attention. So I might try to ask a question, or I might think of a quote or a joke or something that, or a sound. There's not really sounds when it comes to plants. So I think I'm going to ask a question. Did you know that plants can grow in almost any type of ecosystem? All right, so this is asking a question that is related to my topic, right? I'm talking about adaptations that help plants to survive in different types of environments, which are ecosystems. Those are kind of the same types of words. Okay, so I would say they can do this because of adaptations. So I'm kind of introducing the topic, right? They can do this because of adaptations that help them survive, in their environment. Okay, so I'm not quite done with my introduction yet, because also in your introduction, you want to introduce your 3 main topics that you're going to be talking about in your body paragraphs. So I write about 3 different types of environments. So I'm going to introduce those. So I'm going to say, I will tell you about adaptations that help plants survive in the desert, in the rainforest, and in watery environments. Okay, so you can see I have 3 different types of environments that I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to be giving examples and information about those types of environments. Okay, so that's my introduction. Now you guys can see what my introduction looks like, and this is what your introduction should look like too. It has a hook to start it out. Okay, a question is a great hook, and questions are usually the easiest hooks to write, but you can use, like I said, a quote, you can use a sound, you can do something to evoke emotion. I mean, think about what you're writing about. You guys are going to be writing about how the Native American tribes were affected by the Americans moving westward. Unfortunately, it wasn't good for them. So you can include something to kind of make your reader like feel sympathy, and like, ooh, I really want to know what happened, you know? So think about that as you are writing your hook. Remember, your hook, again, is meant to capture your reader's attention. Then you're going to introduce your topic, and then you're going to introduce the 3 ideas you're going to be talking about. So your introduction should include, I'm going to just kind of make a little guide for you. It should include a hook, your topic, and the 3 ideas you will be talking about. Okay, so for example, you could maybe even pick 3 different tribes and talk about what happened to them, because it's possible that maybe some of the tribes were negatively affected, but some of the tribes were positively affected. Or you can pick 3 different effects that the westward expansion had. Maybe you talk about how when the people in the United States moved westward, the railroad started to expand westward, and that affected how the tribes migrated to follow their food sources, right? A lot of the western tribes were migratory tribes, which means that they traveled a lot during the year to follow their food, which was mainly the buffalo. You could talk about how the Americans used lots of their land to build towns and settlements, and so they were forced to live on reservations. You could talk about how their food sources started to diminish or go away because of the Americans moving westward and how they were overhunting or different animals. Okay, so that would be just an example of 3 things that you could talk about. Like I said, you could pick 3 of the western tribes and you could write a paragraph about each of the tribes. So it's up to you how you want to structure it, but again, you're thinking about 3 ideas. So I'm talking about in the desert, that's idea number 1. In the rainforest is idea number 2. And in the watery environments for me is idea number 3. So when I do my body paragraph 1, which I'll do on the next page, but I'm going to give you guys a little bit of an outline for it first. Okay, so we have body paragraph 1. Is going to be talking about idea 1. Okay, so for me, it's going to be in the desert. I'm going to include a transition. And I'm going to include facts. Sorry about the dog. I'm going to include a transition, and I'm going to include facts to support it. It should be 3 to 5 sentences long. And I want to try and include a text evidenced quote. Okay? So that's what I want to make sure I've included in body paragraph 2. Guess what? It's going to talk about idea number 2. It's going to include a transition, facts. It's going to be 3 to 5 sentences long, and we're going to try to include a text evidence quote. Body paragraph 3, it's going to be the same thing. So all 3 body paragraphs paragraphs follow this format. Okay? All 3 body paragraphs are going to follow this format. So let's take a look at body paragraph number 1. I'm going to do it on the next page. Now, you are not going to be labeling everything like this and, writing all of these things out. This is for me to give you information. You're just simply going to have the paragraphs, okay? So you notice how I started my paragraph indented in. My next paragraph is going to start the same way. So let me go ahead. We're going to be talking about plants in the desert. So this is, again, I'm labeling it. You will not. Body paragraph 1. All right, I'm going to indent it. So I want to start it with a transition. I'm going to say, first of all, plants in the desert need to be able to survive in a hot, dry environment. Okay? Plants in the desert need to be able to survive in a hot, dry environment. All right? Now I'm going to give some facts about that. Desert plants have many adaptations that help them to do this. And I'm going to remember back to what I read about. I read that many of the flowers bloom only when it rains, right? So most desert flowers bloom only when it rains, they drop their seeds so more flowers can bloom with the next rain. Okay, so that was one of the things that I learned. Now I want to make sure I include like a direct text evidence. Okay, so I might talk about the aloe plants. Okay, and because I'm going to quote it directly, I'm actually going to write this exact sentence. I'm going to say the text stated that aloe plants, and you see how I put quotes, aloe plants store, and I'm just copying the sentence now, store water inside thick, spiky leaves. Okay, so I've quoted the text, I put it into quotations. The text stated that aloe plants, I forgot about doing that, store water inside thick, spiky leaves. And I'm going to say other desert, plants like cacti do this as well, since there is little rain in the desert. Okay, so there's an example of a body paragraph. Do you see how much information I gave you? I didn't just say that desert plants have adaptations. I didn't give you one, I gave a couple of examples of adaptations. I really explained it so that you can understand the adaptations that desert plants have. Now you have a good idea that there's plants that don't bloom until it is raining, and that other plants store water in to help them to have water even when it's really dry. Okay, so that is an example of a body paragraph. I'm not going to write out all 3 body paragraphs because I do want to be able to move on to the conclusion. Your conclusion is simply going to wrap up what you said. Okay, it's simply a wrap up. Okay, it's like putting a bow on a present to make it even better. All right, so your conclusion paragraph just needs to be a couple of sentences, and it usually is going to start with, in conclusion, you can see that plants, and I'm restating the topic again, so it's like your main idea, right? Plants have special adaptations to help them survive. Okay? In conclusion, you can see that plants have special adaptations to help them to survive. I'm going to restate my 3 ideas that I talked about. So, desert plants, what else was I talking about? Rainforest plants, and water plants all have special features that help them live and thrive in their environments. Okay, and there we have it. I've wrapped up my essay. If you want to include a really interesting sentence or some sort of closing sentence, you can, but really this is sufficient for a conclusion. You're just going to restate your topic, and you're going to restate your 3 main ideas that you were talking about in your 3 body paragraphs. and just really simply restate them. Notice I said desert plants, rainforest plants, and water plants all have special features that help them to live in their environments. Not anything fancy, not anything significant, okay? So your main focus is going to be on your body paragraphs. So as you're doing your research and as you are writing, you really want to think carefully about what facts you can include in those 3 body paragraphs. You want to be able to restate what the text said. So you guys can see right here, I restated, this right here is restating the text, because I did read about that, right? But I didn't quote the text directly. I put that into my own words. And then I also included a text evidence right here in direct quotation marks because I said exactly what the text said. Okay, so you can do both in your essay. You do want to try and have at least one direct quote, but you don't want everything to be a direct quote because you do need to do your own writing and you do need to state your own evidence, okay? So again, expository writing is tricky, but it's not too tricky, and this is the type of writing that you're going to be doing a lot of. Probably more expository writing than most any other type of writing as you get older and move through middle school, high school, and college. And if you are in a job where you are writing papers, it's usually kind of written in an expository format. So this is a format that you really, really want to get comfortable with. And using the text to help you write for expository writing is great because you don't have to know everything about the topic all on your own. And a lot of times you don't know everything all about the topic, right? I don't know all about every adaptation that a plant can have. I did research in my book to find out more information about plant adaptations, and I could do research on websites and I could find other books and other texts to help me as well. So having the text evidence is great because it gives you information about the topic that you're reading or writing about, sorry. So in yours, you are using the 2 stories that have been provided about in your language arts text, as well as any other research that you want to do, but you are thinking carefully. You want to come up with 3 things that happened to the Native Americans because of the westward expansion, or 3 tribes that lived in the West to focus on, where you can give information about what happened with each tribe. Okay, that's kind of your 2 ways that you can write this paper. You can choose which one you want based off of the information that you research, which one you feel like you have more information to write about. But look at the body paragraph that I wrote, look at how many details it has. I gave 2 specific examples in my body paragraph, okay? I gave 2 very specific examples, and really 3 because I said that other plants do this as well. Okay, so think carefully about that. You don't want to just say, well, they lost their food. What food did they lose? Why did they lose it? How did they lose it? What did they do as a result? Okay? To be very careful about that. They lost their land. Well, how did they lose it? Why did they lose it? Where did they live as a result? Okay? Think very, very carefully about what you're saying. Give very specific examples. You don't want me to read your essay and be left with a lot of questions, because if you've done that, if I'm left with a lot of questions and I don't really understand, then that means that you have not given me enough information and you're going to need to add more. Okay, so good luck with your writing. Any questions, please feel free to ask, and I can't wait to read your essays, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye guys.